Now, I'm not the biggest horror fan. I very rarely go see movies in the genre unless it has an interesting concept or it's getting a lot of positive buzz. And I really wouldn't classify this movie as a scary horror film. It's a bit more of a sci-fi thriller, but it is scary at times. They do use a couple of jump scares here and there, but they do use them in creative, non-traditional ways. But this movie has such an interesting and simple concept of just stay quiet or you're dead, and made for such an intense and thrilling movie-going experience. And I was just constantly holding my breath the entire time during the tense scenes along with the characters. And it's just the execution of its concept that made this film work so well. John Krasinski did a fantastic job directing this movie, and I was just drawn into the story and I was on the edge of my seat pretty much the entire time. I love it when you can tell a story and not use a single word of dialogue, and Krasinski does this to near perfection in this film, and he relies heavily on other technical aspects of filmmaking, most notably the use and absence of sound. Just by focusing on one character and you're able to hear all the ambient noise all around him, and then you cut to another one who's supposed to be deaf and you just completely remove any noise. It's just such a simple use and so effective that I loved it every time it happened. And if you're the kind of moviegoer that talks during the movie and tries to whisper to the person next to you, I would say don't go see this movie while it's in theaters and wait for it to come out on digital and Blu-ray, because it's so important for the theater to be quiet. It ruins the effect when there's other noises going on and you're trying to take in how quiet the actual scene is. So skip the film if you go and talk during the film, or just go by yourself and don't say a single word. Across the board, all the actors had really great performances, especially Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, and it's an old cliche of actors' performances are all in their eyes, and in this case it's true and really important to the movie. You just feel all the fear and intensity in the tense scenes that they're in. And also the child actors did really good as well. It's kind of one of my pet peeves in movies of child actors. I'm not the biggest fan of them most of the time, especially when a movie relies so heavily on the performances, but these kids did a really great job. And another thing that I really liked with this movie was the world building and how these characters were going to adapt to not making any noise. And they do that by, using sign language, using soft materials, and not wearing shoes even when they're walking outside. The design of the creatures as well really intrigued me. I like how they kind of reminded me of the clickers from The Last of Us, and they sort of clicked to, I'm assuming, to use sonar. I just like how that kind of grounded these creatures in the real world. But I think what makes this movie work so well is this focused story of this family trying to survive this event that's happening worldwide, and you know it's a worldwide event because of the newspaper clippings you see in a couple of scenes. But I love that it takes on day 82, and the through line isn't stopping the threat, it's surviving the threat. And depending on the success of this movie, I can totally see them making like a prequel film that tells you how all this went down, but it's that contained story that makes this film work so much. And beyond that, the film gives you so much more than just its premise. You have the storyline of John Krasinski's character trying to mend fences with his deaf daughter. You have a theme of parents protecting their children, which really spoke to me since I'm going to be a father in the next 4 months, so that really hit me really hard. Really, the only problems I have with this film is that the tense scenes do tend to get a little repetitive at times, especially with Emily Blunt's character and how she gets out of certain situations. And there are a couple of story beats that I really wish would have gone a different way, especially the ending. Not so much how it ends, but where it ends. I think if they would have wrapped up the story at a certain point, it would have been a lot more powerful. And the beat that they do end on kind of contradicts their theme a bit. But besides that, I love this film, and those pretty much the only small problems I have with this movie. In the end, John Krasinski put together an original and very intense thriller. There was never really any moment where I wasn't locked in, and if you're a fan of the horror genre, I think you will love this one. I know I did. So I'm giving A Quiet Place 4.5 out of 5 stars. So now it's your turn. If you saw A Quiet Place, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and share it, and stay up to date on all the videos going up on this channel. Give the subscribe button a click, and don't forget to hit the bell notification right next to that subscribe button. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.